Hello everyone, welcome back to On The Fly. Today we're going to be taking a look and ranking every single NHL captain, so we'll jump right on into it today and sort of talk about what we're looking for. Obviously in a captain there's two things you look for. One, can they play? And two, are they a good leader, which will basically reflect success as a captain. So as we hop into today's sort of structure, it's best of the best will be the top, great, good, meh, bad, and then of course, what were you thinking? There's not really anyone, in my opinion, who is in the what were you thinking category. But we'll start off here with the first captain. We'll go in alphabetical order, which means the first captain, no Arizona, no Anaheim, meaning Boston, with Brad Marchand as your first captain here. And for me, obviously, yes, Bruins fan, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, Brad Marchand is the epitome of what you're looking for in a captain. He can play really well, and he's got the respect of his team. He's going to be chippy. He's going to play the right style of hockey, and that's what you look for in a captain. Someone who you know day in, day out is going to have your back. And for me, that's why, at least in my opinion, Brad Marchand is going to be in the great category for this one. And when you look at it, you think about the Bruins team this year coming in, not expected to do very much, yet as of today and as of making this video, they are number one in the league, which, I mean, speak sort of how you want, however you look at it. If you're the top team in the league, despite looking like a rebuilding, transition year, whatever you want to call it, team, Brad Marchand deserves to be in the great category for this. And so for that, Brad Marchand will go in the great category. Then to the Buffalo Sabres we go with Kyle Okposo. And for me, Okposo is going to be in the bad category. Not a great player. Buffalo hasn't done too well under his tenureship. So, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it's kind of hard to say any other reason. For me, Kyle Okposo will be in the bad category. Then we have Mikael Backlund from the Calgary Flames. I'll put him in the meh category. He's not really the best of players. He's not the worst of players. He's a good two-way guy, sort of a third-line role in Calgary. Calgary is not the best team, not the worst team, just sort of in that meh category. So for me, Backlund will go into the meh category. And then we'll go on to the Carolina Hurricanes with Jordan Staal. And this one might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going to put Jordan Staal in the bad category here. And I'll put him just ahead of Okposo. But the main reason for this is, you need to sort of look at the Carolina Hurricanes and what they are. They are a really, really good team. Do they need Staal's leadership in that sense? Probably not. You look at the team, how many other players could probably be in that role. It's just hard to say for a definitive fact that Jordan Staal is a make or break of the team. He's not their best player. He doesn't play that well. And, I mean, when you look at the leadership part, I don't think he has that much of an impact, at least in my personal opinion. So for me, Jordan Staal is going to go in the bad category. Then we have Gabriel Landeskog, a little bit of a different player here with the good. He's going to put in the good category, in my opinion. And I just think when we look at a guy like Landeskog, what he is he's not necessarily your most blow-it-away player. You have a guy like McKinnon for that. But at the same time, he provides that veteran leadership that you look for, especially as a team. They have their star power. They definitely do. But the difference between a guy like, say, Jordan Staal and Gabriel Landeskog is Landeskog has the ability to basically lead by example and play his game. That's where, in my opinion, Landeskog separates himself. We'll put him in the good category. Boone Jenner. Last year, I will be honest, I put him in the what were you thinking category. I'm going to be a little nicer this year. I'm just going to put him in the last spot of the bad category. I don't think he deserves to be in the what were you thinking, just the way the team's structured in Columbus right now. They're trying to lose, right? They're trying to get a high draft pick. So really, it's a throwaway. I mean, you could argue for what were you thinking, but at the same time, sort of a bad category in terms of the captain. Then we have Jamie Benn and Dylan Larkin. They'll both be in the meh category, in my opinion. Though both those players are meh. There's Jamie Benn relies a little bit more on the leadership side. His playing has definitely dropped from what his sort of his prime was. Larkin's the other way. His leadership's a little bit lacking. We've seen that with the struggles of Detroit versus, the skill power of Larkin. Obviously a really fast player, plays with energy. So for me, sort of just straddling that good just on like the outside. So we'll put them as far to that left of the meh category, meaning that they'll be on the top. So for me, that's sort of what I'm feeling here with Larkin and Benn. And then Connor McDavid, best of the best, in my opinion. There's two players year after year who are basically the best captain. So in my opinion, Connor McDavid deserves to be the best skill. by far out of any player. Sure, you can argue with all the other guys, but in my opinion, the best skilled captain here is Connor McDavid, and that's basically the check mark of the one category. He has pretty good leadership as well. But now we'll move down to Alexander Barkov here, who's in the, in my opinion, great category. I'm going to put him just after Marchand. I think just the way he plays as of right now, he's a great captain. You know, he plays well. He's a great player. But I'm just going to put him just a touch behind Marchand. I just think Marchand, the way he's sort of captained the team this year especially, deserves to be a little bit ahead of Barkov in that respect. So we'll put him, Barkov's still a great captain, but we'll move him a little bit lower there. Then we'll have Anze Kopitar. I'm going to put him in the good category. I think, you know, he's definitely fallen off from his previous years, not in his prime anymore. If he was in his prime, obviously a lot higher on this list. But, you know, he brings that veteran leadership. He's able to lead a team like the Kings, who are a pretty young team overall. And I think when we look at it, that's where he really makes his money there. So for him, he'll be in the good category. Then we'll have Jared Spurgeon from Minnesota Wild. I'm going to put him in the bad category, sort of that between the meh and the bad. For me, he's sort of another one of those straddle guys. You could put him in either one, but I'm just going to put him in the bad category for simplicity here. I just don't really think, you know, he's not a great player per se in terms of captaincy. He's not the best of leaders. Obviously, Minnesota hasn't done too well under his leadership either. So for me, I'm going to put Jared Spurgeon in the bad category. Then move on to Nick Suzuki. And this is another interesting one. If we're looking at it, I mean, once again, obviously the Habs are a team that's been really struggling to find their groove. I think a lot of that comes from the captaincy position. So for me, you know, Nick Suzuki isn't going to be scoring a lot of points on the captaincy. However, he is a really, really skilled player. So in that respect, I mean, he's going to earn a spot into the meh category. You know, if he wasn't a great player, I would say he's definitely lower down. You know, you could argue for a bad if he was basically the skill level of any of the guys in the bad category. In my opinion, he might even be in a what were you thinking. However, for me, that's sort of what I'm seeing. Obviously, still plenty of time to grow into what he's going to become, but a good, solid two-way player, puts the points up when he needs to. That's what's really the saving grace for him, and so he'll be in the meh category there. Then we have Roman Josi. He's going to be in the great category, number 3. I think when we look at captains, what you're looking for, good, solid player with good leadership. Josi, year after year, has proved that. So for me, Josi's going to be in the great category behind McDavid and one other player and the best of the best. He will end up in the 3rd spot, and that'll sort of solidify our great. There's only 3 players that deserve to be in the great, 2 that deserve to be in the best of the best. And we'll almost get to there. But until then, we're going to have basically 4, I think, players in the meh category coming up. We have Nico Hischier, Anders Lee, Jacob Trouba, and Brady Tkachuk. So when we look at it, so Hischier, obviously, he's a player that a lot of sort of pressure on him to perform and sort of got to him. His skill set isn't the best. His captaincy isn't the best. He's sort of just a meh player. But over the last few years, we've sort of seen his transition into that captain role, and I really do think he'll continue that just as of right now in 2023-2024 season. For me, he's got to be in the meh category still. Hasn't really shown his stuff. Then we move on to Anders Lee. Very, very similar player. You know, he's had his time in the spotlight. Now his role is starting to be a little bit less. His skill level is starting to go a little bit more down, but his captaincy role is a little bit more important. So for me, he's going to be in the meh category as well. Jacob Trouba and Brady Tkachuk will be side by side. Trouba, another one of those players whose their skills starting to go down, but he's going to play that sort of rough, tough captain role that you're looking for. He's going to throw fights. He's going to get into, you know, sort of do stuff to make the game a little bit better for his team, but his skill isn't quite there like it used to be. So for me, Jacob Trouba is going to be in the meh category. Brady Tkachuk is another one, sort of skill up, captaincy down. So for me, he will be in the meh category as well. And then obviously, best of the best, the last one, in my opinion, for the number 1 spot. When you think of a captain, you think of this guy, Mr. Canada, Mr. Sidney Crosby. For me, obviously, he is the epitome of what a captain is, in my opinion. You know, you think about what he's done in Pittsburgh, who he is still. He's still playing some great hockey. So for me, the best of the best does deserve to be Sidney Crosby. And then we move on here. 2 more men with Logan Couture and Brayden Schenn. These 2 players, you know, Logan Couture has been hurt to start the year, so the skill levels is an iffy one. The Sharks aren't going to be that great. I don't know if Couture will be able to use his captain to turn the team around. So for me, just results-wise, Couture is going to be in the meh category. You know, if he puts up a crazy thing, gets the Sharks back into relatively playoff-ish contention, you know, maybe you could argue for the good category, but until then, until we've seen sort of what he can do this year, he's just going to be put in the meh category. Then Braden Shen, also in the meh category, and we'll put him sort of towards the end of the meh category. I just think, you know, with the Blues, just or sort of in that role, you know, the captain, he's not necessarily your best of players. He's sort of just in that meh category overall. And then we're going to get to all of the goods. This is where we start to build up that list. So we'll have Steven Stamkos, probably one of just sort of straddling that line between great and good. He's still a great player overall. His captaincy is obviously there. And we've sort of seen that, you know, the Lightning have always been a team that pride themselves, but there is also a lot of skill there. So it's not as important for that captain role, you know, as opposed to a guy like, say, a Brad Marchand, who doesn't really have that many assets, losing, you know, Bergeron, Krejci, Bertuzzi, Orlov, right? You have all these players who they weren't expected to do very much, turn the team around. So that's where I sort of think, and this is what I've always argued with Stamkos, is that he's sort of on the brink of that. You know, if you had a little bit less guys, you could make an argument for like a great or a best of the best. But until then, you know, he's sort of just straddling that line between good and great. Then Tavares, obviously Tavares is going to be a little bit lower on the end just in terms of his skill. Obviously, he's not quite what he used to be with New York, but at the same time, he's still a great player. He finally got over the hump this year, or I guess last year rather, with finally getting through that first round with the Leafs. Then second round happened and it just sort of blew away. So for me, obviously, with the captaincy, the goal is to make your team better, and I think he definitely does that for the Leafs. So for that reason, he'll be on the good. I'm just going to put him a little bit on the end until they can sort of break out of that role of just making the first round and rolling over. As soon if they can get out of it and they can make the second, third, fourth round, he will be moving up a little bit higher on this list. Then we have Quinn Hughes, ninth is basically where I'm sticking him with this one in the good category, and I think he's probably one of the newer captains we've seen. High skill, still yet to be proven with his leadership, but he is a pretty good captain in my opinion overall. So I'm going to put him in the good category for that. Mark Stone as well, sort of to the edge, just in front of Tavares in my opinion, for in the good category, and I think he's another one where, you know, it's high skill, pretty good captaincy, but at the same time, he's not necessarily relied upon. You look at the Golden Knights, what they have, it's a pretty star-studded roster. So with that in mind, it's a pretty good team for Stone, not really that important in terms of the captaincy. Doesn't really have that much of an impact on what the team would do. So for that reason, I'm going to put Mark Stone in the good category. Then Ovi, I got flamed for this one on the last one, not putting him in the best of the best. This year, I mean, it's really hard to even put him in the great. I'm going to put him in the good category. I think, you know, just sort of seeing what he's done. He's not the same Ovi we've seen in years past. He's really started to struggle. Sure, his leadership role is sort of there. So in my opinion, like, it's good. He's a good captain. He plays good hockey. But at the same time, he's not prime Ovi anymore. He's not the best of the best in that regard. He's not great in that regard. So for that reason, you know, sort of what he's done so far this year especially, he's going to be in the good category. And then lastly, we're going to have Adam Lowry. And this was one that I've been sort of struggling with, sort of straddling that meh or bad line. I'm going to put him in the very last spot of meh, just because I feel like it, just because I'm feeling a little bit nice tonight. But at the same time, between meh and bad, I think is the two spots that he should be in. Obviously, you might feel differently. Let me know. But I think sort of just obviously with the Jets, they're a good team. They don't need a lot of help. And I don't really think Adam Lowry is the guy that's going to basically change the Jets in that regard in terms of his captaincy. Not the most skilled of players, but at the same time, he's a solid captain, if you want to call it that. He gets his team going. That's what you need out of a captain. So for that reason, I'm just going to give him a little bit of a boost into the meh category. You could argue for either one, but that is the list for the 2023-2024 season. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really like, consider subscribing. Tell all your friends and comment down below your thoughts on my list. Until next time, see you.